Welcome to Will at Work. I'm Kevin. If you've been following this series for a while now, we're well into the 300s on my game console collection. We're circling the end of the consoles that I would say are acquirable, other than things that are new that are still coming out, etc., or variants of certain ones, clones of certain ones, etc. Not to include the TV games that I do count as game consoles, because what is a game console? Apparently a game console is a unit that plays a game, whether it's one or more, and for me, I collect video game consoles, so it has to be, a video game, and therefore it has to generate graphics and be a game. Generally don't collect educational titles, but that is a fine line. But you don't see too many of those in my collection. Otherwise, yeah, it's my rules, my list, my rules. Everybody has their own thing. We've gone over that a million times, not going over it again. This particular system, as we start getting near the end of the ones that I, have to show you guys. This is the Casio Pv-1000. Not rare, but uncommon. I say that a lot on this show, because you'll see people say things are rare all the time. Rare. And I've always said, like, if you can buy it on eBay, like if you can go on eBay right now and buy one, that's not rare. That's just expensive. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like saying, like, our Lamborghini's rare. I mean, they're not everywhere, but you can, they're not rare. Like, it's not like that rare Pokemon you got to find. I hope you find it. Lamborghinis are everywhere. You just can't afford one. And so that's kind of how it is with game console collecting. There's plenty of game consoles out there. They're just expensive. That doesn't mean that they're rare. This one is more uncommon. It shows up every so often, and you can get one. Although there weren't that many of them made, but it's not super rare out there. What is rare? You might want to be like, Kevin, what is rare? So in my experience, certainly the Adventure Vision is rare, but it's very close to uncommon. I see an Adventure Vision pop up on eBay once or twice a year, it seems like. So they're not. There was like supposedly 50,000 made. I doubt that there was that many made, but there might have been, because if you think about all the department stores that they had to stock those things for, like when they were originally sold. I mean, the minimum order for something. Like, I remember I was recently reading the Ed Smith book about the APF MP-1000. He was one of the engineers that helped develop that, and they originally, their minimum order from Sears, for instance, when they first started selling, I think it was the Imagination Machine, was for 25,000 units, right? So Sears was like, all right, we're going to sell it, and we want 25,000 units for our stores. Now, not every system sold at Sears, and I understand that, but if you extrapolate one store to many stores and think about how many department stores there were across the United States and in other countries, etc., it's very hard to imagine in any scenario where you're going to make less than 10,000 units, especially with assembly lines and everything. Now, we do know that there are consoles out there that have less than that. We know Unisonic 2711 or 1711, whatever it is. Supposedly there's only 25 of those, right? We don't really know the history on that, but there's no way that was a production run. That has to be some sort of pre-production run. The thing, like Unisonic made blackjack style calculators and things like that, and it was probably like they developed that. My guess is they developed that system because all it does is play cards. They developed that Unisonic 2711 to basically to go out to people that stores and things that were selling these blackjack style calculators, and they were like, do you think you could sell this to that same audience? Sort of like prototypes, but more or less like a finished product. I just don't know if it was ever sold. I've never seen a flyer for it or everything, but it seems unlikely that they only sold 25 of them or something. It just doesn't, they only made 25. And you always hear about these things, like people go back and destroy all the old ones. Like, we couldn't sell all of these units, and then they destroyed them all or something. And it's like, this just seems crazy. I mean, do people really, you know what I mean? Like, when trucks come in and there's like a big smashing machine, and they just start taking like old game consoles and throwing them into the smashing machine to just destroy them so they can claim them as a loss on their taxes? Maybe, but I don't know, man. I know Atari did it, right? Well, we know Atari made too many 2600 cartridges, especially for ET, and supposedly they buried them all in a landfill, and they did find some when they dug it up, but that was an extreme situation. Like, that was unusual, and in fact, to the point where they made a movie about it and everything. I don't know if regular companies are destroying all these things. They probably wholesale discount them and run them out at discount electronic stores and send them overseas to places that don't normally have these sorts of things and just burn them out that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, they slash the prices down until they just move that inventory out. That's how you get rid of it. You don't necessarily have to actually destroy them. So, Adventure Vision, sort of rare. But there are rarer things. There's, I have not seen Bandai Supervision for sale at all yet in the time I've been looking. That's a very early Bandai system, but I mean, I just haven't seen one for sale. Taiwan had a kind of like a Super NES competitor that came out way too late called the Super A-Can. Very difficult to get one. If you do, they're very expensive. Probably because they're probably all over at flea markets and stuff in Taiwan or something. But since they don't have like auction sites or whatever, good luck finding one. Game King 3, almost unheard of to find a Game King 3. The original Time Top Handy game, pretty rare. Don't see those very often. Yeah, I mean, I could name off probably a dozen more systems that are just really obscure and rare, and those are the ones, like, I'll tell you, I'll be like, this is rare, like, if I have one. And I do have some things that are, that way, but for the most part, no. Because really, I'm a bit sensible when I collect, when what I collect. I mean, I'm looking at price and value and everything, too. I mean, I certainly want to have a complete collection like most collectors do. But at the same time, I don't know if you can ever have a totally complete collection, and the dollar mark on some of these things is just stupid. I don't know. It's kind of like I don't ever like look at it as a resale value. I don't look at when I bought this Casio, because I ordered this straight from Japan, by the way, and I had to pay a lot of money to get it shipped here. I don't ever look at that and go to myself like, well, in 5 years I'll be able to sell this and I'll be able to make like, twice as much because it'll be like, people will want it more. Probably not, really. Like, who wants a Pv-1000 Casio? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, there's just a handful of people out there that collect these kind of things. Maybe 1,000 people around the world or something that collect them. And they probably all have one if they're collectors. They don't necessarily want another one. But yeah, there's new collectors all the time and all that sort of stuff. But my point being is that you don't really look at this as a financial investment. So you kind of have to, maybe some people do, but you kind of have to look at it and think to yourself, like, is that a good use of is that a fair price for what that is? And like, I think some guy was selling a Nichibutsu My Vision for $25,000 on eBay or something like that. And I think I saw a Super A-Can go up for like $5,000. And it's like, maybe somebody paid that. I mean, there's rich people out there that if you're rich, you can probably build your own collection however you want and have all the systems, etc. But I don't know if it's the same. Like, going into some guy's house that's like a multi-millionaire and seeing like every game console on their shelf and stuff, you're just like, yeah, well, you spent, an absurd amount of money to get all of those. It's like, it's you can do anything when you have all the money. You know, you can buy whatever you want. So I don't know how great that is. Like, it's cool, I guess. You've got them all, dude, rich guy. But I'm sure some people think that about me or something. But I've been building this collection since 1993 or so. And so, like, you know, it's just been a long thing. I just haven't gone out on eBay in a year or something and bought everything that showed up or whatever. So, anyway, so this I just think is uncommon. That's the bottom line. It's kind of uncommon. I have one game for it, which is Dig Dug, and so we'll play the Dig Dug. The cartridge kind of looks like this. It's a little Japanese cartridge number 5. Yeah, this system was not a success. You know, and it's weird. This system came out in a weird time. It's weird. It's got like a little spring metal thing there on the bottom. What the hell's that about? It came out in a weird time where, like, it was 1982, I think, when this launched. And that is before the Famicom came out. So it would have been competing maybe with Sega's SG-1000, I think, came out before, I think. And it you know, it wasn't a success because I think probably shortly thereafter the NES came out. And also, it's not, this joystick, to be honest, this isn't terrible. When you look at the previous systems that came before this, where they were trying to figure out how to do game controls, yeah, this isn't the pad that Nintendo came up with. This is still a joystick, but at least this is pretty serviceable. Fire button up here, joystick. These two buttons work independently, so you could have 2-button fire, select and start, etc. It feels pretty good. It's a good attempt, and it was decent. You know, considering there wasn't a lot that came before. I mean, you had Atari, of course, and it's probably emulated off of that a little bit. But yeah, other than that, it's, you know, basic RF power. It doesn't take batteries or anything. There's a channel selector on the one side, power on the other side, and, you know, it's a very sleek, basic unit for in a time period. But I tell you, you know, when you go back and you play these things, and they didn't have it all right. Like, Dig Dug will look pretty decent, but it's not perfect, and or arcade perfect. You know, in a time of ColecoVisions and things that were also competitive. And you start to understand, like, at least with me, like, when I play these things, I start to understand that the way some of these things played games wasn't great. Like, ColecoVision played games well. Atari 2600 played games well. If you look at the NES, of course, played games well. And 8-bit, really difficult because, you know, you had to do a lot of tricks and things, and you didn't have a lot of horsepower to work with to make a game play really well, so you had to do a lot of special things to make it, you know, things be smooth and all that. And a lot of these early systems were real clunky, man. They didn't have the good, like, you didn't have a good feel about them when you play them. And this is one of those systems, at least with Dig Dug, you know. But it was a valiant attempt. I'm always surprised that companies like this, like Casio, jumped into this to come up with a gaming system and had a game, and, you know, when they didn't have like a real history of being in arcades and video games. Now, neither did Nintendo, but I don't know, Nintendo had Super Mario, man. You know what I mean? They come out the gate with Duck Hunt and Super Mario, and it wasn't too long before Zelda and everything. Like, they had some great games, and they knew it. A lot of these other guys were just kind of like, we'll build the hardware, and the games will just be okay. And that was always like the death knell for systems. Like, you really needed to have great games. And I don't know, man. People in this video game business, the hardware business, just never seem to really grasp that. Even today, it's a difficult thing for, you know, even when we launch brand new game consoles like the, you know, Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, were there great games launched with those systems that you could play on? Not so much. Not really. They're rare to buy right now due to all the shipping problems and the component issues and everything. And it makes you wonder, like, how well would they have really sold, or would they just be sitting on boxes on shelves? And I mean, it also helps, I suppose, that at least in the United States, everybody got a check from the government, or a couple of checks from the government, in order to have some extra spending money. So they went out and were able to buy these sorts of things. Lots of VR headsets and things sold at that time. So maybe it's all a bit different. But I'm just saying, like, launches on game consoles don't usually go very well if you don't have great games to go along with them. And yeah, I don't know. I can't think of too many failed systems that launched with great games. Can't think of too many. Anyway, let's switch over to the video side and let's check out the Casio. Here we go. We're looking at Casio Pv-1000 Dig Dug 1982 Namco. So, think of 8-bit system. This is about a year before the Famicom was released in Japan. So, it isn't going to be quite NES quality, I'm sure. But let's see if it's Atari quality. And it's good that it's a Japanese system. I got it on channel 95, and we do have audio on the same channel with a fairly stable picture. Oop. Well, that fire button didn't want to work. I guess I should test the buttons first. Alright. I had heard before that the two buttons work differently. Oh. The hell. Shit. Oh my god. Frame rate's like, I don't think it's frame rate, but it's like the, it's real, see, it doesn't flow very well. It's really choppy. All else fails. Crush them with a rock. This control's a little bit loose. This control was, opened at one time, and they had replaced the whoever had owned it or repaired it had replaced the wiring of the cable with a different cable that was like a 10-pin cable. It's crazy. And they did a good job. Actually, the wiring had more buttons in it than wires in it than the original cable did. So I was like, when I looked at it, I was like, well, that's not right. Ah, shit. There we go. So I had to open it up myself. Boy, was it a pain to put this thing back together again. It's a little loose. This control stick isn't the best, but it does work. It could probably be tightened up maybe a little bit more. But for what it is, I guess if you got this in 1982, it was like this or ColecoVision or an Atari 5200. It's not terrible. But it would take a little bit of work. So that's the Casio Pv-1000. I wish I had more games to show you, but you know how it is. You can go on the internet and do a search on YouTube if you want to learn more about it. This one works. It's a keeper. Like I said, the controller could probably be tightened up a little bit, but no big deal. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.